Let's make a fabric Easter basket. If it's not Easter, you can use this fabric basket as decoration or extra organization around your house or your baby's room. You'll need half a yard of fabric of your choice, some batting that is thicker and will allow your basket to stand up. You'll need a sewing machine, a needle and thread, and optional, you'll want to have an embroidery hoop, embroidery needle, and embroidery floss if you want to add a name or any other decoration to the outside of your basket. And it will be handy if you have a plate or a circular object that you can trace to be the base of your basket. First, I started by measuring my plate, which measured 10.5 inches. I multiplied that by 3.14, which is pi, and that will be the radius of the basket. I added 1 inch to this measurement to make sure that I had enough room for seam allowance. You can add more or less depending on how much seam allowance you would like. Trace around your plate and fold over your fabric so you can cut out 2 circular shapes. Take your pi measurement and use this to cut out the rectangle that's going to go around your basket. For reference, the height of my basket was 8 inches. You can do more or less, and I used this measurement so it gave me enough room for seam allowance for the top and the bottom of the basket. Cut out the batting for the circular base of your basket, the side, and for the strap. You'll do this to the same measurements that you made for the base, the side, and the strap. I sewed a ribbon between 2 of my fabric layers, and this is so that when I was turning it right side out, I could easily grab this string and pull it all the way out and invert the strap. Sew your strap to the measurement that you want. So in the end, I chose for my strap to measure 1 inch by 12 inches, but you can see here that I sewed it much wider, and you can fix this later when you're sewing it. And if your batting and fabric are a different measurement, you can always go back and cut it down with zigzag shears. Work at turning your strap right side out. This is when that string really comes in handy because it can take a long time to turn your strap right side out, especially if it's thinner. There are definitely tools for this, and I lost my turner tool, so if you have one, I would definitely put that to use. Cut off the string on the strap and give your strap a good press with your iron. To make sewing a little bit more easy, sew the batting to one of your fabric pieces along the top edge. This will just be a stay stitch to make sure that nothing moves around when you're doing the next steps. You'll do the same thing for the base of your basket. Take the outer rim of your basket and fold it in half, right sides facing one another, and you want to sew along the edge with the same seam allowance that you allowed earlier when you did your measurement. After you sewed your sides together, you can now pin it to the base of your basket. Sew around the edge of the bottom of the basket with 1/2 inch seam allowance. You can now use zigzag shears to trim off any of the excess fabric at the bottom of the basket. You can see here that my bottom is quilted. That is kind of the direction I was going for originally, and I kind of changed my mind after I did the base of the basket. So don't let this throw you off. You can use your scissors to snip the fabric around the edge of the basket, and this will just help it turn right side out and go along those curves better. Repeat this for the inside of the basket. Place the outside of the basket and the inside of the basket and line up the side seams. You can pin your strap in place like I'm doing here. Pin around the entire basket and leave about 3 inches open to make sure you can turn it right side out later. Sew at 1/4 inch seam allowance. Turn your basket right side out and give it a good ironing. And you can fold in the opening fabric towards the inside of the basket and pin this in place. Do a stitch around the entire perimeter of the basket at about 1/4 inch. And now your basket is all ready to go for Easter morning. If you want to personalize your basket, you can easily do this with a chain stitch. I did this by drawing out my daughter's name with an erasable marker. Now using an embroidery needle and embroidery floss, I did a chain stitch. Add an embroidery hoop to make sure that your embroidery is really tight and neat. A chain stitch is really simple. All you need to do is insert your needle up through the back of the fabric. Then insert the needle back through the fabric about 1/8 inch away from your starting point. Stitch one more time about 1/8 inch away from this point, and instead of going back through, you're going to go under the stitch that you just made. And then bring your needle back through this starting point, and that's a chain stitch. You'll continue this process going up and then under the stitch and then back through until your entire name is finished. This is a great project to do while you're watching a show or listening to a podcast, and it's very relaxing. I hope you enjoyed making these Easter baskets with me. If you made one, I would love to see. You can use these same materials that you used for the Easter basket to make our crown pattern in this next video.